And welcome in. It's another edition of Mile High Magazine, and I'm Murphy Houston. Hope you're having a great day. And today we're joined by Jordana Ash, Early Childhood Mental Health Director for the Colorado Department of Human Services Office of Early Childhood. That's quite a title there, Jordana. I mean, all of that is you?
That's all me.
Well, welcome to Mile High Magazine.
Thanks. I'm so excited to be here this morning.
Well, we try to get the word out on important things that are happening in the state of Colorado, and what you're doing is obviously very important. And we know that Children's Mental Health Awareness Day is May 10th, so we're in the month of May, so we thought we'd address that topic. So let's talk about what is early childhood mental health.
That's a great place to start. We get asked that question a lot. And people can think about early childhood mental health as social emotional health and development. And it really starts right away, right at birth, when kids begin to form the attachment with their parents, and they begin to form trusting relationships with special and important people. So that sets the stage for them to be able to go on and form other attachments with peers and other adults.
So it starts like at birth.
It actually starts before birth, we think now, but we can talk about it at birth, and we can talk about the developing child's ability to understand and manage their emotions. That's a really big part of early childhood mental health.
That puts a lot of pressure on the parents, right from the get-go.
They have a very important job, but we're ready for it. And when kids have those secure attachments with parents, they are able to explore the world and be curious and learn and set the stage for success, really, in school and life.
I would think, and I'm just going off the top of my head from what you just said, it really builds an immediate confidence factor with their surroundings. If they feel comfortable with their parents, they're going to probably feel comfortable with a lot of things.
Absolutely. And it's the parents being tuned in to what the baby's telling us even before they have words.
Well, important stuff to know. Holy cow.
Absolutely.
Never heard that before. So why is it so important to know about your young child's mental health?
Yes, most people, or many people, when they hear mental health, they actually think mental illness.
I was almost the same thing just a minute ago. I'm thinking, wow, is that an issue? No, it's not kind of related to. Well, kind of related to, but not totally.
It's related, but it's not babies on couches having therapy.
Right.
We really want to emphasize the health part of that phrase. So mental health really means mental well-being. The child's health and well-being and resiliency and their ability really to have a good life, to really set the stage for having a positive life and positive relationships.
But if you're a young parent with a baby and you're not thinking about the mental health thing, you're just being who you are. How do you know if you're succeeding at that age?
Babies tell us a lot. Very young children tell us a lot, and they tell us a lot through their behavior. So I do want to talk about ways in which parents can, look into whether they're having any difficulties. But if it's okay with you, I want to talk a little bit more about why early childhood mental health is so important.
Well, because when I'm thinking early childhood mental health, I'm thinking, I'm 8, 9, 10, that's young.
Exactly. No, we're talking about newborns and babies and toddlers and preschoolers.
Well, then talk more about that.
Absolutely. It's really important that all the adults in children's lives, so parents, grandparents, teachers, all understand that just like a baby's or a child's body grows and develops, their brain is growing and developing right from the beginning. And it's affected by the relationships and the experiences that they have. The first 5 years is a really critical window to promote strong mental health and identify emotional or behavioral problems that, if left untreated, can lead to really other negative impacts. And another thing, just like adults, children can be affected by stress. So it's something we don't think about often, but it's a really important concept. So even when we think that young children either aren't hearing us or they're not listening to us, children are very tuned in to the adults around them, and they pick up on the stress that's going on. And when it's too much for them to understand or process, and when there's no adult available to them to help them feel safe and secure, that child can get overwhelmed and exhibit behaviors related to that stress.
That's such a good point. I mean, even how many times have you heard your child say something and you go, where did they hear that? Well, what do you think they
Yes,
heard that?
indeed. They're hearing it from you. And the more that adults understand this, the more that they can provide positive interactions that strengthen the developing child's brain and body. And we like to use a metaphor. We like to use the metaphor of building a house when we talk about young children's social emotional development. So I'm not a contractor, but you can think about all the steps that go into building a house. So there's laying the foundation, and there's framing the walls, and putting in the electrical and the plumbing.
Great visual.
Yep. So you can think about that. And all that happens in a particular sequence, right? We have to get that in order. We have to get it done correctly. So laying a strong foundation is at the heart of having a strong house. And for children, that strong foundation is the secure and loving relationships that they have with the adults in their life. And that leads to health and well-being and learning and all the good stuff that we want.
It sets the scene for the rest of their life, is what you're saying.
It absolutely does. And a strong foundation can do that. And conversely, a poor foundation, so one that's affected by negative experiences or unstable relationships, can lead to challenges for that young child.
Wow, that's a lot of pressure on moms and dads, isn't it?
It's pressure, but it's also opportunity. You know, it's a really amazing time period, and parents are the ones that absolutely know their children best and can really form these strong relationships just by naturally being with them and providing that security.
But as you said earlier, though, it takes more than just mom and dad. They need to be surrounded by that positive feeling from a lot of people.
Yep, and everybody plays a role in helping a young kid get a good start. So that's grandparents and relatives and teachers.
You know, I'm a grandparent, 7 grandkids, and it's so different being that as opposed to a mom and dad and raising the 4 kids that we had to raise. I felt a lot more pressure there with the kids than the grandkids. But yet I feel it is important for my wife and I to be involved in doing just what you say, positive reinforcement. Because sometimes you hear moms and dads are going through a lot of different stress, and they'll say something, and if we pick up on it, we kind of try to turn that a little bit. Oh, what mom meant was...
Yep.
And I don't know if that's effective. Is that effective?
It's absolutely effective. As you said, kids need to be surrounded by loving, secure relationships. And they have different relationships with different people. So you're grandpa, and you have probably a very central role with the 7 grandchildren that you have.
It is. I'm the official car picker-upper.
Car picker-upper. That's an important role. We all need a car picker-upper.
It's good to have a title, I'm telling you. We're talking with Jordana Ash, Early Childhood Mental Health Director, Colorado Department of Human Services Office of Early Childhood. So what are some of the common concerns, Jordana, you have with young children's mental health?
You know, you began to talk about this a little bit. Children communicate through their behavior. It's really important to think about that for a moment. So what we want to do is we want to look at that behavior and say to ourselves, what is that behavior telling us? Even when we don't like that behavior, right? The child's being naughty, or the child's exhibiting something that is annoying us, frankly, or is confusing us. It's really important that the adults around that child ask ourselves, what is that behavior telling us? When children are very young, early mental health problems present themselves as difficulty managing their emotions or expressing their emotions. And sometimes it's a lack of a strong bond or relationship with a caregiver. It's important to look at that.
Right.
And then other common concerns for children are when they don't seem to be able to make friends. We begin to worry about that because friendship is a really, really important piece of growing up for young children. And sometimes we see children who don't seem to learn from the learning environments that we give them, either the activities we're doing at home or the activities we do in school. And I have to say, as we're talking about Children's Mental Health Week and recognizing this, that for some children in our midst, they're exposed to many stressors, perhaps many traumas. And there may be violence in the home, there may be drug use by the adults in the home, or a parent themselves is depressed. And so those experiences may set up a child to have mental health problems or challenges later in life.
Well, let me ask you this. Obviously, the surroundings you're mentioning is important. Is there a genetic involvement? Can they be born with some kind of a mental issue, and it's not the parent's fault, but they might see something, as you've just mentioned?
So I really want to emphasize that none of this is a parent's fault, that sometimes children are not able to cope with the experiences that they have, and the adults around them have their own problems and are not available to that child to help them. But what we know now is that it's not either nature or nurture, that it's really a combination of the kinds of things that happen in a child's life. Those you can think about it as a scale, and you can think about the negative experiences or the positive experiences, and the negative experiences can compound and grow too much for a child. But the most amazing thing that we're finding out from science and just from talking to parents is that having a strong relationship with one adult in a child's life, one person that believes in them, seems to be the factor that buffers young children against the harmful effects of those negative experiences.
Wow, that's quite a statement. So one positive can erase a lot of negatives.
It really makes a difference. And that positive can be grandpa. It can be a teacher or a coach. It's that one person that believes in that child and says, I know you're going to make it.
Oh, that's a great statement, and something for us all to think about, too, because you worry so much about the negative. One positive can erase the negatives. Think about that, you guys, with your parents. Now, what can parents do to support their kid or their child's mental health? What can we do as parents?
So I have to say and really emphasize that parents are the ones that know their child best.
Well,
right?
they should, right?
They certainly should. And I think they don't get credit all the time for really being the ones tuned in to what their kids need and what their child is capable of. So the parent also knows what's going on in the family. Are there stresses in the family that the outside world doesn't know about? Maybe a job change. Maybe there was a loss of a pet, and that's really affecting the young child.
Good point.
And so the parent knows best. Parents can look for changes that are persistent. You know, we all have little bumps in the road where we might be stressed out or the child might throw temper tantrums, just, a little bit. And that's okay. That's normal development. But when these behaviors are persistent or they don't make sense to the parent can look for what we call regression, or the loss of a skill that a child once had and no longer does. For example, a child who went through a stressful event like a car accident or the illness of a family member,
Sure.
Maybe that child was a really good talker before and is no longer speaking. That's going to raise a red flag for that parent to say, I need to look into this a little bit more. Or a child who seems to be withdrawing and not taking pleasure in the routines of the family life, like playing with grandparents or going to a park and really enjoying themselves. Parents can look for these changes, and then they can look at the growth and development that they would expect. And if they see something, they really should say something, because all of their concerns are valid.
I would think it's extremely hard to be observant of that, because as you're talking, I'm thinking, well, part of growing and part of life is not all good. It's just life.
You're right.
And there's some lessons there to learn. But if you're so worried about that, and does that change the parents' attitude towards the kids, that they have to sugarcoat everything?
We want the right balance. As we talked about the definition of early childhood mental health at the top of the show, we talked about kids being able to be curious and learn. So certainly they need to make mistakes, right? When you think about a young child starting to learn to walk, for example, that child falls down and bumps his or her head.
Sure.
And experiences what that's like. And that's how they grow and develop in the security of that attachment relationship. But you're right. They need to be able to stretch it a little bit and not have parents be so worried that they don't let kids explore. But parents do provide that safe base for children to come back to.
It always come back to the safe base. Should parents sit down and maybe when something bad's going on, take more time to explain to their children, I guess depending on the age of the child, as to what's going on, here's why it's so bad, and this is kind of part of life, as I just mentioned, and maybe this is how we should look at it together, something like that?
I think you might have a mental health background. You're really onto something here. So, there's so many things that parents can do. And that's really the wonderful thing about this special period in young children's life, is that a child's mental health and well-being is built through stable and loving relationships with caring adults. And we like to call that serve and return. So our ESPN friends are going to think about a tennis game, for example.
Sure.
The serve and return, the back and forth interactions that parents have with children shapes the developing brain. And it's all that stuff that parents and grandparents just do naturally. So they smile and look at the child, and the child looks back and smiles and engages and giggles and moves their arms and legs even before they have words. So it's really great to see adults interact with children like this, and importantly, pay attention when kids need a break and when they give us the signals that, okay, that's a little much and I'm a little overwhelmed now. It's super important to show children how we calm down when things are stressful for us, just like you were talking about and talking to kids.
Once again, leading by example.
Exactly. And we want to talk to children about the steps that we're taking so that we don't get too stressed out. So we encourage parents to label the feelings that they're having, the positive feelings, and what we might call the negative feelings, like I'm disappointed I didn't get that raise at work, or I'm worried that I'm not going to have enough money to fix the car, but here's how I'm going to solve that problem. Help them, the children, identify their feelings and figure out together what to do next. If parents are worried, like over worried or depressed or anxious, we really encourage parents to get some help too, because how parents do and how little kids do is really dependent on how well their parents are doing.
Well, it's a total reflection, isn't it?
It's a real reflection.
I mean, you're living there every day with these people, and kids are looking for some direction at whatever age. And if they're seeing their parents struggle, they're going to struggle.
They're going to struggle, especially kids fill in the blanks. So they tell themselves a story when they see their parent stressed out or worried. So it is important to tell children at the age appropriate level what's going on, but really to emphasize that the parent is handling this, that the parent's own emotional state is calm and relaxed and in a problem-solving mode.
It's a challenge. Maybe, Jordana, you can or talk more about what the role caregivers might have in that development of child's mental development. I'm talking like preschool teachers or regular grade school teachers or their Sunday school teacher. What role do we have?
You know, we all can play an essential part in helping children's mental health get off to a good start. Many parents like to get information from child care providers, teachers, doctors, which is awesome. We really like that. And folks like this can help parents understand that mental health is a critical part of overall health and well-being, and that it's okay to talk about worries and concerns. That helps reduce the stigma that sometimes is associated with mental health. So instead of seeing a child's challenging behavior as simply disruptive or that labeling the child as a problem, you know, you talked about school teachers, Sunday school teachers, or neighbors, or people you see in the grocery store, sometimes they're actually adding to the problem because they're labeling the child, and the parent feels badly that their child is exhibiting challenging behaviors. So all of those kinds of helping people can really think about this as a learning experience for the child and the parent. Let's get away from those labels and let's go back to trying to understand what this behavior is telling us.
So the teachers who probably see the kids more just right behind the parents, I guess, should they be asking questions? If they detect something, do they talk to the parents first, or do they reach out to the child and say, hey, what's bothering you? You seem different the last couple of weeks. Is that a wise thing to do? I mean, teachers are busy, but they care.
Teachers are busy and they care, and they know their child in a way that is really important because they also see a child during routine activities.
Exactly.
So they're right there tuning in. I always think that the relationship between that teacher and the parent is critical. If a child feels like everyone's on the same page and that we're all in this together, that child feels extra supported.
I think it's a good thing.
It's absolutely a good thing.
And how does this need of children with their mental health, how does it change with their age? I mean, it's got to get different. It's not the same as when they're 1 and now they're 12.
Exactly. However, there are some basics that children of any age, I would say, even that 12-year-old, need a caring adult to help them through the hard stuff, someone who's just crazy about them. And positive relationships between the child and parent is really crucial at any age. But that said, there are some differences. So very young children, and I'm thinking up through the age of 3 or 4, the help is really through the parent. It's really, we help the parent to help the child. Now, sometimes a parent and a child can be seen together by a trained mental health professional, and they can work on their attachment relationship. So they're more in tune with each other, and the parent understands better how to help the child manage their emotions or express their emotions. But the help, as I said, at that age is really directed to that parent or caregiver.
Sure.
Now, when you get a little bit older, of course, kids are more able to express their feelings, and they can form important relationships with a teacher or a counselor, let's say, because they have the words to describe what's going on for them. And certainly older children, those children, I would say, over the age of 8 and into the middle school or high school years, oftentimes really benefit from being together with groups of children who are also experiencing some things that they are. For example, if their parents are separating or going through a divorce. Sometimes it's helpful for children of that age to work with peers and a trained person to help them see that they're not alone and that others experience the same kind of issue. What I would say, though, and just really emphasize, is that you can't go wrong going back to the basics, and that's supporting strong relationships with the parents, understanding that behavior has meaning, and helping a child have skills to get through difficult experiences.
They're going to happen. Two things I was thinking of. I have a 13-year-old granddaughter, and they're at that age, girls, but she's had some things happen in her life, and she in her peer group, there's a couple have had the same.
Mm-hmm.
And I know they talk about it. Is that healthy for the kids to talk amongst themselves without a trained professional or a parent around? Does that help air some things out? Does they understand more?
So kids are going to talk together, and their peer groups are critically important.
Yeah.
What's really important also, though, is that that young adolescent has somewhere to check out these ideas, because sometimes their friends may not have the best advice for them. Peer relationships are critically important at that developmental stage,
Sure they
but
are.
it's also really important to have a trusted adult to go to, and sometimes that's not the parent at the moment.
Good point.
So that's why high school teachers, middle school teachers are so critically important, as are grandparents or other relatives that kid can go to and check out what they're hearing from their peers.
I like that. Well, moving right along here. So I guess I want to get to the point. If you sense a problem with your child's mental capabilities, where do we go for help? I mean, what would you suggest?
Certainly parents can go to their own trusted relative or friend if they're worried about a child's mental health. Remember, though, that we're learning more and more every day about children's brain development and their mental health. So friends and relatives might not have the most up-to-date information, and that's why we recommend going to a family doctor. A doctor will have that up-to-date information on the brain science and will know what kinds of services are most helpful for what kinds of problems. Some doctors' offices even have a mental health specialist right there in the office. So at the Office of Early Childhood, we have a website that has lots of information about where to go to get additional screenings and additional services. Can I give you that website?
Do tell.
Okay. So this is all spelled out, earlylearningco.org.
Say it again.
earlylearningco.org.
Pretty easy.
It's pretty easy. We made it that way.
Well, for people like me, the easier the better. I know we were mentioning that May 10th is Children's Mental Health Awareness Day, but you were mentioning earlier that there's something on May 8th that's going on in the Capitol. Can we talk about that?
Absolutely. There's a fantastic event going on with a number of sponsors, including the 0 to 3 organization, which is a national organization focused on helping parents and professionals with young children. It's called Strolling Thunder, which is just an amazing
Wow, I
label.
like that. Yeah.
And we're encouraging parents with little kids, even those kids in strollers who are sometimes not welcome in places, to come on down to the Capitol. And there's going to be an amazing event with speakers and attention to families' needs around childcare and family-friendly workplace and supporting families with young children on all kinds of levels. So come on down and join us for a fantastic day at the Capitol.
Plus, the Capitol's a great place to be. It's such a neat place just to see, our state Capitol building. Is there a cost involved with this, or you just show up? Or
you just show up, and there'll be lots of activities, and I think there's going to be music and activities for kids. But it's all around this idea that we all play a role in helping our kids get a good start.
Is there more information on this event on the 8th on your website?
Yes, there is.
And give us that website again. People are slow to remember. Yep.
So that's a different website, and I'm going to give you that one too, because this is also one of our very proud websites from the Office of Early Childhood.
Great.
So you won't be surprised that this website is Colorado Office of Early Childhood.com.
Well, that's pretty easy to remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's information about Strolling Thunder. There's information about what goes on at our office and ways to connect parents with services that they need.
Well, Jordana, good job here. Is there any final closing thoughts you'd like to leave with parents now that, for me, and I'm through all of that, but boy, if I was a young parent, based on what you just said, I might have some real concerns.
You know, there's reason to pay attention, but there's also reason to be incredibly hopeful and optimistic. Parents are doing a great job. And the one thing I think I would just reiterate, which I mentioned earlier before, is that every adult listening right now has the opportunity to be that special person for that kid. And we never know the difference it's going to make until they grow up. But you hear so often from kids or adults who have overcome adversity that they had somebody that believed in them. So go out there and be that special person to a young child in your life. It'll make all the difference.
So even for a person like me that's kind of raised their children and grandchildren, you can still be that person. You don't ever outgrow that possible position in a child's life.
You have a chance every day to wake up and be that special person.
And to parents out there, any final words of advice about what we should be doing? Be more observant about something that they may not even be thinking about right now.
You know, parents, it's important to believe that early childhood mental health and social emotional development is important for everything that you want for your child, to succeed in school, to have positive relationships, to be a contributing member. And you have just an amazing opportunity with your attention and your loving, secure relationship to get your kid off to a good start.
And don't feel guilty, because, you know, parents live, I think, with guilt. Most parents do. And so what we've been telling them today hopefully doesn't make that guilt feeling go up a little more, going, gosh, have I been doing the right thing at home? What am I doing?
You know, no guilt. This is a no guilt zone.
Yeah, sure it is.
From our perspective, you know, there's no reason to feel guilty because your kids really, really want to have a relationship with you. They look to you, and you have a lot to offer.
And there's going to be mistakes made. I mean, people need to realize it's not a perfect road.
It's not a perfect road, but kids are resilient and kids strive towards health. And if we can keep that on our front of our minds, we're all going to get there together.
And I was thinking here, at least when I was raising my children, a hug went a long way. And I would think that would definitely affect the mental health of children. Things might be a little rough, but if you can just give them that hug and say, hey, things will be okay. Doesn't that go a long way?
It goes a long way for the child and for the parent.
Well, it did for me, I'll tell you that. I was not the perfect dad, I'm sure.
Well, hugs go a long way, and communicating to your kid that you're in this with them, that goes a long way too.
This is great stuff. And Jordana Ash is the Early Childhood Mental Health Director, Colorado Department of Human Resources. Your tax dollars, right? At work doing good stuff. This
Absolutely.
is really good stuff, Jordana. And once again, if you could help us out and maybe give us those websites one more time, because people might kind of be thinking about reaching out for help, let's share that again.
If you're interested in finding out what services are available to you, if you
Right.
have concerns, if you have questions, go to earlylearningco.org. To hear about the many programs that the Colorado Office of Early Childhood has and the things that we're doing and the work that we're accomplishing every day, go to coloradoofficeofearlychildhood.com.
Good job. Jordana Ash, thanks for coming in today.
Thanks for having us.
And thank you for listening. Enjoy the rest of your day.